New tonight, Governor Dan McKee says he wants to put money back in your wallet.
The governor outlined his plans to offer Rhode Islanders relief from the rising cost of living during his State of the State address tonight. 12
News reporter Kim Kalunian was there for the speech and joins us now with what you need to know. Kim?
Well, the governor's official budget proposal, which will include that tax relief, is set to be unveiled on Thursday. But in his State of the State address, the governor outlined how he plans to ease the burden of inflation.
So now you can clap for that. Tax relief is good.
In his first State of the State address since being elected to Rhode Island's top job, Governor Dan McKee says he plans to use the state's excess cash to offer broad tax relief for residents.
We know that Rhode Islanders are still dealing with rising prices at the grocery store, on utility bills, and at the gas pump.
McKee proposes cutting the state's sales tax incrementally, starting by reducing it to 6.85%, down from the current 7%. He also wants to forego the 3-cent increase on the gas tax, freezing it at roughly 34 cents a gallon. And McKee wants to give Rhode Islanders a tax rebate on energy bills and eliminate the so-called litter tax for businesses.
The budget I'll put forward this week will continue providing economic relief for Rhode Island families.
On the topic of affording a place to live and the ongoing homelessness crisis, McKee vowed to build a robust Department of Housing just 1 week after his housing secretary resigned amid criticism.
But one person, one department, or even one entire administration can't address this problem alone.
The governor spent a large portion of his speech on one of his other top priorities, education, praising the work of the commissioner and superintendent of Providence Public Schools on the state turnaround and calling for what he referred to as a targeted modification of the state's education funding formula with the goal of improving outcomes and putting Rhode Island on par with its higher achieving neighbor.
In our first 100 days of my full term, we will be outlining a plan to reach Massachusetts education levels by 2030.
And the governor said he also plans to tackle potholes and litter, fast-track infrastructure projects, and invest in the state's burgeoning life sciences sector. At the State House, I'm Kim Kalunian, 12 News.
Kim, thank you. Meanwhile, State House Republicans have responded to Governor McKee's address.
Immediately following his speech, Senate Minority Leader Jessica De La Cruz offered the response from the state's GOP, focusing on several key proposals from the governor's speech, including lowering that sales tax.
In his plan, the governor offered many ideas for how to spend the projected $610 million surplus. Republicans, however, want to provide immediate relief. Our state overtaxed Rhode Islanders, and now it's time to send a refund. Therefore, we will be introducing legislation to require taxpayers to get money back as they do in other states.
Under their proposal, state Republicans are proposing a 5% sales tax and suspending the state's gas tax.
For in-depth analysis of tonight's State of the State address, we're joined in studio by 12 News politics editor Ted Nesi. Ted, speech is a big moment every year for every governor. It's their chance to kind of try to set the stage for their agenda at the State House.
Yeah, Mike, I'd argue there's really no moment on the political calendar where a governor has the spotlight to himself or herself as much as tonight. And that's why governors and their advisors take this speech so seriously. Like all State of the State addresses, this went through a lot of drafts, a lot of edits. There was plenty of internal debate over what priorities should make it into the speech, which one should be left out, all with an eye on persuading the General Assembly and the public to support the governor's agenda during the coming months of the legislative session.
Ted, ahead of the speech, we caught up with Rhode Island's most powerful lawmaker, House Speaker Joe Shekarchi. Wasn't making any specific commitments yet.
I think Rhode Islanders are hurting and we have to do something, and I recognize that, but we have to be cognizant of the fact we don't want to do anything short-sighted that's going to trigger a bunch of cuts later on down the road. Or tax increases, by the way, for that matter, too.
So right there you have it, Mike. Legislative leaders, they're going to have their own ideas, their own priorities about how to spend the $610 million surplus, issues like housing. So McKee's going to now have to really work behind the scenes. Tonight was in front of the curtain to try to get his agenda passed before the end of the session in June.
All right, 12 News politics editor Ted Nesi. Ted, thank you very much.
Good to be here.